the whole key to this whole thing is, it doesn't matter if it's something that I have in common with you or not. If it's something that means a lot to you, and I know that you really enjoy doing that and you really care about doing that, you still want to share that with me. And I need to be, aware enough in the communication department when I'm talking to you to understand that this is a cue. This is you trying to open up to me and open up some conversation and some talk between each other and have a meaningful, intimate moment. That's what that all is. And, the key to this is to pay attention and listen for what's beyond the words. This week on Marriage, Life, and More, we continue our series on Marriage Reset. We're going to get into part 2 of our episode on breaking free from busyness. We'll get back into that right after this. Welcome to Marriage, Life, and More. This is a podcast about marriage, Bible, and book studies, and we do interviews with people that have inspiring stories. I'm Daniel Moore, your host, and once again this week, I have my beautiful co-host sitting over here, my wife, Michelle.
Hey.
Thank you guys for joining us this week. If you're not familiar with our show, check out our website at marriagelifeandmore.com. Our platforms, our YouTube and Rumble links are there. We're also on the Christian podcasting app Edify, and we're also on your Alexa and Google smart devices. You can also visit us on social, on Facebook, Instagram, and X at CT Gap Online. If you're a fan of our show, please subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment on our platforms, give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, and we'd be grateful to you for doing that. Well, this week we've got a lot of territory to cover, so we're just going to jump right into it. We're going to be getting back into episode 3 of our series that we've been doing on Marriage Reset. If you feel like you're a roommate in your marriage, we're trying our best to work through on how to change that to being back to a soulmate. And last week we started this episode and it was on busyness. And this week we're going to continue and try to wrap this episode up. This week's Breaking Free from Busyness, How to Reconnect in Your Marriage.
When couples begin to see that their packed schedules are slowly eroding their closeness, they often respond by putting all their hope into the next big escape or event. They pin their connection on future moments, a fancy dinner, a long weekend getaway, or a long-awaited vacation. These occasions become their lifeline, a chance to reconnect, recharge, and feel close again. The problem is, they expect these rare moments to carry the emotional weight of time lost, months or even years of disconnect. And because of that, the pressure to make those moments magical become overwhelming. Unfortunately, the pressure often backfires, leading to disappointment instead of deep connection. It's just not sustainable. A thriving relationship needs regular attention, not just highlight reels. Consider this example from a guy named Jake and his wife Kayla. Weekend at the lake house. Those 4 words had me, Jake, convinced we were about to have the perfect reset. I was hopeful, maybe even a little desperate for some quality time that would pull our family back together. It had been a chaotic year. Our twin boys had started high school. Our oldest daughter was buried in college applications, and my wife Kayla and I had spent most weekdays juggling work deadlines and weekend commitments. We were all pulling in different directions, so when I booked a long weekend at a remote lake house in northern Minnesota over fall break, I envisioned us unplugging, reconnecting, and laughing around campfires in flannel pajamas. We arrived late on Thursday night, just as the last bit of daylight dipped behind the pine trees. We unloaded bags by flashlight and collapsed into our beds. The next morning, full of excitement, I gathered everyone for a hike along one of the lake trails. Finally, our weekend was in motion. But we barely made it down the trail before things started to unravel. 15-year-old Eli and his brother Noah started a pretty back and forth about who had a better aim with skipping stones. What began as teasing quickly escalated into a shouting match and shoves. Their sister, Charlotte, rolled her eyes and walked off in the other direction. I stepped in to calm things down, but my attempt at diplomacy tanked fast. Eli declared he was over it and stomped back to the house. Charlotte decided not to join us for breakfast, and when she came back an hour later, I met her with a flood of frustration. I gave her a lecture about attitude, family unity, and how this weekend was supposed to bring us together. The room fell into an awkward silence as everyone stared down at their food, eating quietly. I muttered something like, "We're going to enjoy this vacation whether you like it or not," and marched out the door. Kayla found me later that morning sitting at the edge of the dock, watching geese fly over the water. She asked me what was really going on. I didn't want to admit it at first, but I felt pressure building inside. The more we talked, the more I realized I had loaded up the trip with massive expectations. I wanted this one weekend to fix all the distance, the stress, the cold dinners, and missed conversations from the past several months. I'd expected too much from too little time. And that's why so many of us do. We place all our hope for renewal in a single event. A weekend, a vacation, a special dinner. And we expect those moments to undo months or even years of disconnection, but life doesn't work like that. Relationships don't heal on command or follow a fixed schedule. Jake finally saw that his desperation for reconnection had led him to put unfair pressure on everyone, including himself. After that honest conversation, he returned to the house and asked everyone to gather. He apologized for setting the bar so high and for trying to script the weekend into something perfect. He admitted his need to control things and promised to chill out and let the weekend unfold naturally. Did that reset their family overnight? No. But from that point on, things felt lighter. They laughed over burnt marshmallows, got soaked in a surprise rainstorm, and had a few simple but meaningful conversations. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And for Jake, the biggest win wasn't the hiking trail, or the lake, or the late-night board games. It was the freedom of letting go. Without the weight of unrealistic expectations crushing the trip, he can enjoy the quiet, imperfect moments, and those moments, unassuming as they were, helped bring them closer.
This story really hits home in a lot of different ways, because I know a lot of times people do try to use vacations because they only get so many vacations, for one thing. And why do we only get so many vacations? Because we're so busy.
And we work.
And some people may not have all the vacation time to take off like that. Some have a lot of vacation time to take off, but they can't leave work because they're one of the prime people in the business. And, you know, they really have to really plan their times away. And usually when somebody's that busy, that does flow over into their family life. Mm-hmm. And it creates this busyness that we talked about last week. And so families like this that just operate on this constant on the go, full speed ahead syndrome, they usually try to take these vacations and fix all their problems with this 4 or 5 days at the lake or whatever. And how many times do we go into a vacation with all these expectations and plans and, we're going to have a great time with our kids and everybody's going to get along great and we're all going to get along great and there's not going to be no fighting, no arguing, all this stuff that we always think about. And then when we get there and all of a sudden it doesn't go that direction and people start losing their tempers and attitudes start flaring, it's real quick, real easy to ruin a vacation real fast when that happens. And if, in this situation, they were actually able to talk it through.
Yeah.
and they were able to figure out what the issues were. And it sounds like at the end of their trip, they actually did have some positive interaction and enjoyed themselves. But how many times do we hear of those trips where they come home still angry at each other? It didn't resolve nothing. And as a matter of fact, sometimes you'll talk to them like, I wish we'd never went, It's like, I could have just stayed at work and had more enjoyment than all this time fighting with you guys at the lake or whatever.
And I think sometimes too, listen to this, his expectations. I was thinking to myself, how many of us are those type of people that like plan a trip out and it should go like this, this, and this, and this. And when it doesn't, the frustration sets in.
Yeah.
And silently, you're like very extremely frustrated and you start taking it out on everybody.
Yeah. I think it's in our natural being, the way that we are made up, that if we have plans, we want to meet those plans and do them. And in our mind, we think we're going to, but then when it gets interrupted or disrupted and things don't go like we wanted them to, some people can go with the flow and they don't have any issue with that. But there's some people, that's a huge problem.
Well, let's see. Was I that way at the very beginning? Because yes, I was.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, who cares? Like, I'm like, whatever you want to do, let's just do it.
But even with my personality, there's sometimes I have plans that I get upset because they don't, play out like I expected them to and thought that they were going to. And there's just something about, for some reason, there's just something about it seems to me like with your family, especially if you plan a trip with your family and you've not had much time to interact with each other for a while, and it seems like we're all getting on each other's nerves, and we think, okay, this vacation, let's just put all that aside and let's reconnect and, try to enjoy each other's company and this time that we're going to have together and all that. And we sometimes go into it with that mindset that we're just going to fix everything this weekend. We're going to come back Monday and we're going to be starting all over. Everything's going to be happy and wonderful and excitement, and we're just going to all love each other and all this kind of thing. And, really it's just a false hope.
Yeah.
Because if you've gone so far that, as in this story here that, described, they had gotten pretty deep into being really busy and just not connecting with each other. Mm-hmm. And so probably some damage had been done already before they went into this weekend. And they went into the weekend, the parents did with the wrong idea of this is going to fix everything.
And I have to say, kudos goes to the husband, because he could have chose not to discuss how he was feeling to his wife.
Yeah.
But he did. He opened up in that honest communication.
He could have just sat there and blamed it on everybody else.
Yeah.
And the problem's not with me.
I thought to myself, I was like, Jake, you did well.
Yep, he did. And, couples are often given solutions when these issues arise, these problems arise, such as the following to manage busyness and disconnection. You're told to slow down. You're told to do less. You're told to create margins. You're even told by some people, you need to simplify your life. Reevaluate what is on your plate. Set better boundaries. Shed commitments. Give yourself permission to say no. How many times have we heard stuff like that?
Yeah.
Delegate and be willing to let go. Better manage your time. Plan your week. Schedule your calendar and rearrange your priorities to create space for your spouse. Make your husband or wife your top priority after God. Schedule a date night every week. Put it on the calendar. Unplug from technology. Limit your children's activities. Create a marriage or family mission statement. And, it's not that these strategies are bad or don't have value, because they do. There's a lot of things in that list there that probably would be beneficial for you in your marriage and in your life. In fact, we're going to explore several of them later on in future episodes as we get into this series a little deeper. The real issue is that many of these approaches tend to create a cycle for couples that looks more like a short-term boost than a lasting solution. They spark a temporary sense of closeness, but before long, those same feelings of distance start to settle back in. As the connection fades, the guilt and disappointment returns, couples are left feeling like they failed or that the effort wasn't enough, which only deepens that discouragement. So we need to just take a moment and breathe. We're not about to tell you to plan an elaborate getaway or pile another thing onto your already full plate. You won't find a long checklist of what you should, need to, or must be doing for your relationship that could end up adding more pressure than progress, because that's usually what happens when people add stuff on your plate like that. Shifting from feeling like co-managers of life to true partners and companions doesn't happen through dramatic schedule overhauls or by packing your calendar with weekly date nights, anniversary getaways, or perfectly planned traditions. Instead, we need to think about the advice that Moses gave in Deuteronomy chapter 11. In verse 19, he was teaching about God's truths to children during the normal rhythms of life, when you're at home, on the go, setting down at night, and starting fresh in the morning. He doesn't call for grand programs, rigid routines, or highly structured lessons. He emphasizes simply making the most of everyday interactions. And so that's the approach that we want to encourage in your marriage too. You don't need big orchestrated moments. Wow. It's fun to take these trips, and you need these trips. You need to go on vacations. You need to go on cruises and stuff like that. But you can't put all the pressure on those to fix your life marriage problems, your home issues, and all these things that we create on a daily basis sometimes as we get so busy with schedules and stuff. You can't rely on these little vacations that you take to solve all of those issues. What really builds long-lasting connection is intentionally leaning into the small, daily opportunities to engage, listen, laugh, touch, and talk. It's in those ordinary moments that extraordinary connection can be formed.
I love that.
And there's a phenomenon in weather that's called microburst. I know you've heard that before.
Yeah.
Here in Missouri, we get those occasionally. We'll have a big storm come through and it gets super windy. And then all of a sudden, this big, huge burst of wind will come through just super fast. And it's knocked over billboards. It's knocked over telephone poles. It's ripped off roofs before. And then, of course, after that, everybody goes through and they look at, oh, that was a tornado. It's like, no, that was just a microburst. That wasn't actually a tornado. But that wind just hits with such force all of a sudden that it just changes everything. And when you think about those microbursts, we can actually translate that over into our marriage relationships. And last week, as we were leaving our last episode, we gave you a little bit of spoiler about what we was going to talk about this week and some ways that you can try to help fix some of these issues in your marriages. And we call them micro moments, is what we call those. Yep. They're micro moments of connection. So there's an internationally respected relationship researcher. Her name is Elaine Morris. She has a doctorate. And she spent over 4 decades studying thousands of pairs and how they interact. Her groundbreaking work at the Relational Dynamics Lab in the University of Colorado has revealed some of the most compelling insights into what makes couples thrive or falter over time. During one particular study observing newlyweds in their early years of marriage, Dr. Morris uncovered something both powerful and surprisingly simple. Couples who maintained their connection weren't necessarily those who went on lavish date nights or perfected communication. They were simply the couples who responded to each other, not with grand gestures, but with attention and empathy. Couples who stayed together 6 years later responded positively to each other's attempts at connection roughly 84% of the time. In contrast, couples who eventually divorced only responded about 30% of the time. And you might find yourself asking, responded to what? Well, Dr. Morris coined the term connection cues. These cues are everyday efforts from one partner to reach for attention, acknowledgement, affirmation, or comfort. They're often subtle, but they carry a clear message. I'm trying to connect with you. Counselor and author James Halston explains it this way. Meaningful relationships aren't built in mountaintop moments or highlight reel vacations. They're built in dozens of tiny, seemingly unimportant exchanges through the rough, routine parts of life. Love happens in hallway conversations, quick glances, small touch points, a hand on a shoulder, walking the dogs together, laughter over burnt dinner. These moments reveal a simple truth. We always have the chance to turn away or toward our partner. To better understand how connection cues work, think of a child lobbying for attention. They're actually masters at this. Asking to play a game, crawling into your lap, or even throwing a tantrum are all different ways of saying the same thing. Notice me. Adults make similar bids, but often in much more understated and easy to miss ways. For example, imagine your wife is passionate about home decor. My wife started looking at me with this look in her eye because she thinks I'm talking about her. Do you think I'm talking about you?
I'm not going to
She's not going to comment. No comment.
I'm out.
Anybody that visits our house through the seasons, those of you that are listening, you know what I'm talking about. My love is awesome at decorating, and she loves to do it. And we have 4 seasons of decorations in our house, maybe 5. I don't know.
I think it's 5.
Yeah, I think it is 5.
Could be 6.
Yeah, our poor attic just like overflows with stuff.
Sorry, guys. I just love doing it.
But she walks through the door holding the latest find from a thrift store and says with excitement, "Guess how much this vase was? It's originally from a designer collection." Now, you may not care about vases or home design one bit. You might be tempted to grunt and nod. But what she's really doing is trying to share her joy with you. She's tossing a connection cue your way, hoping you'll pick it up, even just for a moment. In my own life, Michelle loves playing a game she calls What Do You Think It Cost? She thrives off finding great deals at the store. She'll hold up a new find, maybe a pair of shoes or something, and she'll say with glee, "Original price was $120. Guess what I paid?" Well, I used to miss what was really happening. I'd roll my eyes or toss out a quick guess just to move on. But over time, I've realized it wasn't about the sale. It was about the connection. She wanted me to share in her excitement, to smile, and to be a part of that moment with her. Connection cues can be verbal or physical. A touch on the back, a shared glance during a chaotic moment with the kids, a casual comment like, "Work was a lot today." Even household requests can be subtle bids for attention. "Can you help me with the dishes?" Or "Do you have a minute?" Each time, we're being invited to engage. The real challenge is recognizing that invitation when it shows up in disguise. Some cues are clear, like "How was your day?" or "Could we talk later?" Others might seem mundane, like an email forward or a comment about a TV show or a meme texted in the middle of the day. These are all doorways to connection. What matters most is whether we walk through them. And as I'm reading through this, you and I both have met with couples and talked to different people, and we've been in the same boat before where we miss this all the time. Mm-hmm. And, one of the biggest things that I can think of right off the top of my head right now is like when I come home every day at lunchtime and even after the end of the day, because we both do lunch together for a small portion of time there, you'll ask me, "So how's your day been? How's your day going?" And the tendency is for me to say, "It's fine," and just move on and, not think twice about that. And I see a lot of people do that. And that's the extent of their conversation. And, sometimes people actually get irritated because they're asked that question. It's like, "Well, what do you think I was doing? If you think I'm not at work, you accusing me of doing something else or whatever." And, I think that couples so often take this stuff so wrong. And this is something that I've had to learn over time. And, Michelle, she'll tell you that, as if you ask me these questions, that I will give you answers.
Yeah.
Because I know what you're after.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a big part of communicating. And like this of saying, there's so many times that so many couples look at these as just little small things. They don't think they're important. And so they just pass it on by. And, I feel so much for couples that you sit there and watch them communicate between each other, and they'll drop these subtle little questions and these subtle little hints between each other, just trying to start a conversation and talk. And then you'll sit there and watch the other spouse give a one-word answer and then go back to their phone or go back to looking at the TV or whatever it may be, and they do not carry on that conversation. And then once again, that spouse feels left out and rejected because all they were trying to do was have a good communication with their spouse. As just as simple as just asking, "How was your day?" It's a conversation starter. And so many times we overlook that. So what's some thoughts that you have on some of that?
Oh, yeah. You're going to ask me. I'm over here sitting here crying, guys.
I was talking, trying to help her have some time to dry her tears. So what are you feeling? I want to know what's going on in your mind with that.
from the time that we first got married to where it is now, for you to talk about that and just to recognize it, just really, just warms my heart that you know what it is that I want. And guys, this is like, we've been married 23 years. And for him to talk about this and to know where we're at today, you have no idea how much it means to me, of him having, like, learning to communicate and learning to what it is that I want and what I love. And my love is just like, for you, is just overwhelming. Like, I just thank God, like, where we're at today and just where we've been. And just, I look at you and I think, I'm so lucky to have someone like you.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I see guys all the time that I can tell when they answer their wives, when they try to start a communication like that they're not interested. If it's not something that's in their wheelhouse and something that they're interested in talking about, they'll blow their wife off and not even continue that conversation. They'll give them this little one-word answer or whatever and just move on. And, I don't like everything that you do as far as hobbies, just the general things that you enjoy doing. There are a lot of things that we're similar in, but there's some things that you do that's not my thing. And it's the same way vice versa. There's things that I do that's not your thing. And then we do have things that are in common. But the whole key to this whole thing is, it doesn't matter if it's something that I have in common with you or not. If it's something that means a lot to you, and I know that you really enjoy doing that and you really care about doing that, you still want to share that with me. And I need to be, aware enough in the communication department when I'm talking to you to understand that this is a cue. This is you trying to open up to me and open up some conversation and some talk between each other and have a meaningful, intimate moment. That's what that all is. And, the key to this is to pay attention and listen for what's beyond the words. There's more to what's being asked than just a question. There's more there. It's a mind thing. And you need to get to know your spouse enough to understand that. And you need to respond intentionally, not just off the cuff, just to give them an answer and blow them off so that they'll shut up and leave you alone.
Oh, you can always tell when it's genuine.
You can tell when it's, you can tell when it's intentional. And in order for this communication thing to work between each other, you have to be intentional with it.
Yeah.
A small laugh, a thoughtful question, a small show of affection, that can be incredibly meaningful.
Absolutely.
These micro moments are often more powerful than anything planned or rehearsed. And over time, the simple act of noticing and responding adds up to a marriage deeply rooted in consistent connection. And it's one cue at a time. It's not a big, huge vacation. It's not a big cruise. It's not buying a big, huge, old, fat diamond ring. Those things are awesome, and that has its place, but it's not there to fix problems. These problems have to be fixed little things at a time. It's as little as when, Michelle tries to hold my hand, or I try to hold her hand, or she's sitting on the couch and I'll walk behind and I'll reach down and pat her on the shoulder. It's stuff like that couples should long for and get it, because we've got to understand that there's more to relationships as a husband and wife and in a relationship like that than just casual conversation and passing.
Right.
You've got to have those deeper moments where you can actually connect in an emotional level and an intimate level. Did you have something?
I just wanted to make this comment. Dan knows how I am about Christmas. And when I say, oh, can we go to the store? And it's usually like that home store or it's some.
No.
I am so excited. You are not going to believe.
Like a kid in a candy store.
It is. I've got I can do this, I can do that. And I'm just all excited.
And I'm like,
everything.
half our attic is full of Christmas.
But you know what? He sits there and just smiles at me. And I'm like, what do you think? Can I get this? And he's like, sure. He's like, whatever makes you happy. And I know deep down he's thinking, the attic is full.
We're going to be in the hole for 6 months.
But it's just funny because when I talk about, I just think about, because you end up smiling because you're laughing at me because the way I'm being, and I'm loving it because you're loving me doing something that you don't really like, but I love it. And then you have to pack it. I mean, you
Lug
have
it
to
up the stairs in the tote, stack it in the attic, climb the ladder. I know.
See, guys, that's love right there. That is true love.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got off sidetrack.
But you know what? Just from a husband's aspect of things, and guys out there, you can think that this is losing your man card all you want to, but it's not. This is something you really need to seriously think about and consider towards your spouse and that relationship that you have. I may not really be the Christmassy person that Michelle. This is
not.
This is a perfect example of what I just said a while ago. I'm not Christmassy. I like Christmas. It's pretty. I like the decorations and all that kind of stuff. But she's like over the top, okay, with Christmas, and I'm not that. But you know what? When I can sit there, and when she wants to go to the store and look at all this stuff, obviously the first response is, good grief, we got plenty of Christmas stuff, What else is out there that you need to buy? You've got it all. But like she said, I go with the flow. I go with her and whatever. But when she gets there and she starts looking at everything, and I see the smile on her face, and I see her light up like a light bulb, and I can just tell that she's in her rhythm, she's in her place, she's in her spot, that makes me happy. Because I know that that's something that you really care about and that means a lot to you. And I'm just thankful that I'm there to be able to share that with you. I watch so many guys just blow that off and stay home. You go by yourself and go look at all that. I'm not taking no part in none of that. They're hateful about it.
Or they're just not even enjoyable.
They send them on their way. They don't understand the whole connection value of that. And they just blow it off. And, take it for what it's worth. But I found out that if I do what I do the way that I do it with you, if I go with you and enjoy those moments with you, even though it's not my thing, we have a better relationship.
Yeah. Now, there are times I don't want him going.
And that's because she doesn't want me to know what she's spending. See, there's a key to this. I go because I can say, we've reached our limit. Look at that. We still got to buy a shake when we leave, and we're not going to have enough money if you buy that.
I don't spend a lot, guys.
No, she does well.
As he read earlier, that bargain thing, that's me. I really, truly try to find the best bargain that I can.
She does.
Before. I'm like, well, I think maybe this store might have it cheaper.
And we'll play the Price is Right. She'll come up and, guess what I paid for this? And I'll just like $50. No, I paid $10. It was on sale.
Bargain.
Yeah. Ding, ding. But all of that's fun. I mean, that is what makes up our relationship now. There's a day when we wouldn't have done that.
No.
There's a day that I would have blown you off and totally ignored the little cues that you were throwing at me, and I would have gave you those little one-word short answers and walked off my merry way and left you standing there thinking, well, I tried.
I'm so thankful.
Once again, I tried and it didn't work.
So thankful for God.
And there's a huge difference. And I think a lot of times guys, and I'm saying guys because guys do this more than women a lot. Women do it too. I'm not saying they don't. But honestly, this is a guy problem I see more than it is a woman problem, because women want to connect intimately. Mm-hmm. That's a woman. That's how they're created. And guys are the manly thing. They don't want to be the intimacy and all this kind of stuff. And you know what? There's a manly thing about being intimate with your wife and, spiritually, emotionally, physically, all of that combined. We're going to look at a few connection bids here.
I like these.
See if you guys can relate to this. We're going to give some examples of connection bids and what those hidden requests are. So when I come to you, Michelle, and you look at me and you say, how does my new outfit look? What are you really telling me?
Will you affirm this for me?
So, guys, when she says that, she's not just saying, oh, that looks great, and you turn and walk off and act like you're not interested. She's asking you that for a reason. Women like to look good for their husbands. They like to look good at the places that they're going. They want to know that you're going to be happy to be walking next to them while they're wearing this outfit, and that she's going to be the queen every room that you walk into. I mean,
or vice versa.
Yeah, and vice versa, But us guys don't usually ask that question as often, but some guys do.
Well, I will tell you, when Dan walks in and he doesn't match, I'm like, dude, you don't match.
Yeah, she breaks my heart. I thought it looked great.
I was trying to tell you that. I was trying to affirm for you that it didn't look very good.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Appreciate that. Okay, so the next question here, can you put the kids to bed? What would that be?
Will
possibly
you help
a
me?
request? Okay. Sit next to me.
Can I get some affection?
Want to play a game?
Can we have some fun?
I had a terrible interaction with a friend today.
Will you comfort me?
Let's watch TV.
Yeah, can we unwind?
I sent you a web link.
Will you take interest in what I like?
How was work today? This is a popular question.
Can we have an adult conversation?
Guess who I ran into today?
Will you give me attention?
So see how simple this is, but yet we miss it so much.
Read between the lines.
We miss that stuff a lot.
Yeah.
You know?
Little cues.
And, a lot of times, just like, can you put the kids to bed? It's a very popular thing for the spouses between each other to play a game of who's going to be the ones putting them to bed tonight because they don't want to do it together. I see it happen. It happened to us a lot when the kids were younger. Say, well, can you put the kids to bed? I was like, well, what are you doing? Can't you go do it? I'm watching my TV show or my football game. But that's just that's a reach out to say, hey, can you help me do something? Can you be a part of this? Sit next to me. Can I get some attention, some affection? That's a close, like an intimacy type thing. Wrapping your arm. What happens when I wrap my arm around you? How does that make you feel?
Well,
if I'm sitting in church and I put my arm up around you and pull you in close. I mean, that's an intimacy moment. If I'm just sitting next to you and just for no reason, I reach out and just kind of touch your arm for a second. You reach over and hold my hand. I mean, what all does that, and what does that make you feel as a woman?
Well, when you put your arm around me and, or just touch my hand or hold my hand, it just makes me feel that you want me close and that, you want not only just that you want affection, but you are paying attention to something that I truly want as well.
Yeah. And it makes you feel closer, and just kind of bridges those gaps sometimes where we feel. So guys, this is just some examples. There's just hundreds of those moments every day that happens that we overlook. And I guess this is just a bid to be more wary, to be more observant in your relationship and try to latch onto those moments when you have a moment that you can interact with each other in a special kind of way that you normally don't do that. And that builds that love inside of you. That builds that trust between the two of you. And it makes that intimacy level, rise considerably. When it comes to emotional connection cues, like we've been talking about, it's not about how deep the conversation goes or how fascinating the topic is to you personally or how romantic the moment feels. What matters most is how you respond. When your partner reaches out with a small moment of vulnerability, excitement, or interest, you have three choices. You can turn toward them, you can turn away, or you can turn against. So let's shift the scenario. Imagine your wife points out a cozy little bakery while you're walking downtown and says with excitement, oh, that place has the best pastries.
I was going to say cupcakes.
Oh, cupcake. Yeah. My wife loves cupcakes, so that's a good example. Well, that place has the best cupcakes. Well, I have three possible responses. I can turn away, which I just keep walking without acknowledging her, distracted by my phone or my own thoughts. I can turn against her. That's where I snap. We don't have time for snacks. Why are you always focused on food? Good grief,
I'd punch you.
Or I can turn toward. I can smile and say, really? What do they have that you like? Maybe we can stop by after lunch. Ding, ding, ding. That's the winner.
That's right.
It's not about loving bakeries or craving a croissant or a cupcake, because I can tell you I'm not much of a cake or cupcake person like she is. She simply wants you to show a flicker of interest in something that lights her up. And in that small exchange, even just a few seconds, you've chosen connection. In relationships, these brief moments become the glue that binds you closer together. Author Ellie Licista explains the powerful messages that you send your spouse when you respond to her bid for connection. I'm interested in you. You matter to me. I see you trying to connect. I'm open to you. I'm listening. I want to understand you. We're on the same team. I'd like to help you, whether if I can or not. I'd like to be with you, whether if I can or not. And I accept you, even if I don't accept all of your behavior.
Good.
Sadly, many of the small attempts that we make to connect with our spouse throughout the day go ignored. It could be something as simple as reaching out for a hand to hold on a walk, or asking a question only to be met with silence while the other person is still scrolling on their phone. Though often unintentional, this actually does send a message. It says, I'm not really interested in connecting with you right now. And when this becomes a pattern, the damage grows. If your spouse continually reaches out and those little bids go unanswered, they may eventually stop trying altogether. Over time, that silence breeds disconnection and loneliness within the marriage. That's why learning to recognize these bids for connection, and more importantly, to respond in even small affirming ways, can begin to change everything. It's not a fix-all solution, but it's a powerful step toward moving away from that distant roommate-like dynamic and back into emotional closeness. And I think that I can see where if somebody constantly was reaching out, that the longer that they would reach out and be responded to with silence, that a desperation would take place to where they finally would probably just shut down.
Yeah.
I mean, why do you keep trying if somebody's not going to ever recognize it? You know, if they're just going to keep blowing it off. And that's why it's so important. And that's what's crazy, because, you know, when you first dated, all that stuff mattered.
Person. Yeah.
You know, you did all that kind of thing. And I think that's why it's so destructive, because to the aware spouse, the one that's trying to get this interaction and understands the importance of it, they probably remember, well, we used to do this all the time. Mm-hmm. You know, what's wrong? Why are all of a sudden, when I reach out to you, you no longer want to respond to me? You know, is it me? And, you know, and then they start taking the blame game towards themselves and making themselves be the reason for it, when it's probably not that. Mm-hmm. There is a root issue going on there that needs fixed, but you definitely don't want to get to that point where you allow that to happen. Mm-hmm. So there's another a story here that, as an example, and I'm going to have you share that with us as we close today.
Take Jamie and Claire, for instance. After a long evening of shuttling their kids around to piano lessons and basketball practice, they both landed in the living room. Jamie with his laptop and Claire reviewing lesson plans for the school week. Claire glances up and asks, "Do you remember the name of the volcano that buried Pompeii?" To Jamie, that might seem like a trivia question out of the left field, but underneath it, Claire is making a bid for attention. It's not about Mount
Vesuvius.
Thank you. It's about wanting to share a moment, even if only for a few seconds. Even if Jamie doesn't remember or care about Roman history, simply pausing and replying with, I think it starts with a V, but I'm not sure, lets Claire know she's been heard. That tiny moment gives them a flicker of connection in an otherwise scattered evening. And just in case you're wondering, the answer is
Vesuvius.
We know life is packed. You can't respond to every knowing glance or playful comment when your hands are wrist deep in dishwater or you're wrangling the toddler out of the refrigerator, but you can catch some of them. When your spouse sends a little spark your way, a wink, a comment, a brush on the shoulder, you can often return the connection in just a moment. A simple "love you too" or a small smile might be all it takes. And if you miss it, that's okay. Watch for the next chance, or better yet, send one of your own. If your spouse winked at you while the spaghetti boiled over and you couldn't respond, catch up later with a playful tap or a warm smile. Chances are they'll appreciate the effort more than you know. This isn't meant to make you feel guilty, as you have failed some invincible connection quota. It's about changing how you see ordinary interactions. A comment about a car, a shared laugh from a meme, a question about your day, these everyday things are more than background noise. They're opportunities to invite your spouses into closeness. It's these small, everyday choices that really shape a marriage. You may need to make space by setting better boundaries or dialing back on your commitments, and those conversations are worth having. But for now, The priority is recognizing the little chances to connect when they cross your path. You won't capture every single one, but grabbing a few more of them on purpose can begin to close the emotional gap and breathe new life into your relationship. Maximizing your connection bids is simple, practical, and powerful, and it can become one of the most effective ways to push back against busyness and move closer to partnership you really want.
And as you were reading that and talking about those little small things that you can do, it reminds me of something that you do quite often. And I'll be sitting there, whether if it's in church or if we're downstairs in the living room or wherever it may be. One thing that you like to do is sometimes you'll catch my eyes and you'll wink. I don't know what to do when you do that. I'm just like, do I wink back or what? Is she like getting ready to ask me for something, or what's going on in her head right now? But no, that's a perfect connection moment, what we're talking about here. And, I'm thankful for those moments that you and I have between each other because there was a time we didn't have those.
No.
There was a time that all of those stopped. And they stopped because we failed to communicate, just like we've talked here today. We left our communication to just talking about the kids and the schedules and, got to be here, got to be there, all the logistics of being married. And if we forgot about me and you, and we totally left us out of the equation. And I'm so thankful that, all the marriage conferences that we've been to and the things that we've done to correct the problems and the issues that we've created in our marriages, because we're the ones that did it. We both had our issues that we both have taken the blame for some of the stuff that's happened and where it ended up at. But I'm also thankful, just so thankful, that we can both take the blame for fixing it because we both came to a realization that we were failing in something that was very important to us. And we decided we needed to do whatever it took. And I'm so thankful that we did that. So is there anything that you'd like to add to this one as we get ready to close this one up for this episode?
Well, let's talk. I think the last episode we talked about the silver stallion. So I was trying to think of something that we can give to our listeners, something that's new, something about us.
Okay.
This month was Dan's birthday, but I don't know when this is going out. So he had a birthday.
Actually, August was my birthday.
Yes.
Yeah. This is probably going to be at the end of September.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah.
So
we're recording ahead here.
Yeah. We're actually going to North Carolina to see our new grandbaby.
Yeah.
And
we will have been there by the time I think you hear this, or we will be there.
We don't know.
Whenever this lands. Yeah.
And then our granddaughter started her first day of kindergarten. Mm-hmm. And
our little special needs granddaughter.
Yes, and she got lost on the bus today.
Yes, got on the wrong bus, and we had to go get her.
2 hours later.
Yes.
That was an experience that we don't want to happen again. But I just honestly, I am so thankful for these little micro
moments.
Yes. Yep. I mean, honestly, guys, that's the reason why I was crying earlier, because I don't know that. I mean, I know you guys know our story, but to see where we were to where we're at today, it just, my heart literally it's just exploding with just like thankfulness that God has brought us so far and that we're both willing. We're like sponges. Yep. We're both willing to do whatever it is. I mean, when someone gives us advice, we take that in and we try to practice it. And, and we watch older couples with relationships, and, have like mentors and stuff like that. But we are so, so thankful. Not only and we're thankful that you guys give us this opportunity to pour into you and let God just use it.
We want your marriage to be like this.
Yeah.
This is what God intended for it to be.
Yeah.
And if anything that we could ever say in any of these episodes, even if it's just a one-liner, I'm just thankful for the opportunity to be able to share that. Michelle and I are our hearts are with marriages. And we just pray that, as we go through these episodes and through this series, that if you're in a wrecked marriage right now, we hope that this makes a huge difference in your relationship.
And we always learn.
So,
Every time I'm in this, I'm like, oh, that's good. I need to tuck that one in.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
Yep.
That's for sure. Well, we're going to go ahead and close this one, and this is going to be ending episode 3 on busyness. And as author Jenna Janitas puts it, a kiss, touch, or phrase tenderly reminds us of the love that we have for each other. It makes time stand still and lets you forget about everything else for a moment. Even though it may be simple, the loving gesture speaks volumes. The time spent and all the little things that you give each other, that's what's priceless. So our takeaway from this episode is roommates don't have time for each other. Soulmates use simple, everyday moments to stay connected. Well, that's going to wrap up this week's episode. We'll be back next week with another episode here of our series on Marriage Reset. And we pray that after this episode here, that your marriage is stronger and your walk with God is closer. This is an extension of Connecting the Gap Ministries, and we pray that you have a blessed week.